Mr. Toastmaster, the minute is over.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. International speaker number 2, Dexter Bryan Calacar. How are you doing? How are you doing? Dexter Bryan Calacar.
Mr. Toastmaster, I'll check my
Check
speaker
your
first.
audio and
Can you
your
hear
video.
me?
Yes, coming through clear. Have you pinned the timer?
I pinned it already. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. We will reintroduce
Yes, please, Mr. Toastmaster.
Dexter Bryan Calacar. How are you doing? How are you doing? Dexter Bryan Calacar.
In 2010, I moved from the Philippines to the United States. I became a clinical laboratory scientist in the field of organ transplantation. Outside the window of my work in downtown Los Angeles is the famous Hollywood sign that reminds me of the glitz and glamour of Southern California. Yes, I am the guy who conquered the land of the milk and honey to pursue my dreams. On the outside, I look great. But on the inside, I had an internal demon constantly telling me that I am not good enough. I felt fragile as I pondered and cried as I asked myself, what is going on with me? Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, distinguished guests, and demons, I remember driving to my work last March. I got caught in the traffic along the way. As I sat there not moving, I started thinking about my life. I have a nice condo that I live in. I looked at my car and thought, I have a nice car. I have a stable job, but I feel horrible. Why? That is when I realized I was depressed, but there was no reason to be depressed, but I was. I went to my doctor and had a physical. All blood works and systems were normal. I tried stopping coffee and eating organically. I tried watching fun and comedy movies. Nothing seemed to help. In July, I received a call from a family friend named Sandra Carson. Sandra is a sweet and thoughtful friend to my family and a loving mom to her 2 sons, Steve and Sam. Our families became close from each other years ago and have invited each other to special occasions, birthdays, weddings, and holidays for years. As Sandra spoke, her voice seemed brittle as she told me her son Steve was found in his car in the garage with a note saying, I can't take it anymore. Who would have thought that Steve would do such a thing? He was always friendly and jolly. He had a promising career ahead of him. Why would he end his life? Who would have thought that he was suffering and bleeding emotionally? Then I thought, who would have thought that I could do that? I realized that would have been me. Steve's brother, Sam, has been bedridden with muscular dystrophy for the past 56 years. He had spent most of his life in the 4 walls of his bedroom. Sam had every reason to want to kill himself. But Sam has a very positive outlook in life. At Steve's service, I was sitting talking with Sam. When we had a moment alone, I asked Sam how he maintained such a positive attitude towards life. And Sam replied, I have a system. I kept my life occupied by chatting with my friends and asking them how they are doing. Because I do this, my friends check on me to see how am I doing. I thought I can do that. Rather than waiting for someone to call and check on me, I can call and check on them. I called Iva, a single mom of two who lost her job during the pandemic, and asked, how are you doing? We talked for hours. I called Amy, who is an ICU nurse, and asked, how are you doing? She told me it is her first time in her career to see death every 8 minutes because of COVID-19. We talked about her for 15 minutes and thanked me so much for my call. I called Safra, who lost his dad during the pandemic. He was able to say goodbye to his dad only over the phone. I asked Safra, how are you doing? He was so grateful that I called and thanked me over and over. Just like magic, 2 days later, I got a call from Amy thanking me again for my call and was asking me how I was doing. Today, we all check on each other to make sure we are all doing okay. My dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, maybe you know someone who looks great on the outside, but you don't know how they are doing inside until you asked, how are you doing? So reach out and ask, how are you doing? You never know, the life you save might be your own. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Dexter.